Check.
Yeah, stand back here. I can talk to my mic. Yeah. Okay, it is the hour, and I have 5:31, so it is time to call the Planning Commission together for the August 20th meeting. Noting that there's a quorum present, we will begin the meeting with the public input period. Anybody signed up for just the general public input period, Ms. Tiffany?
Yes, ma'am. We have Marty Farrell.
And whoever is coming to the mic, make sure you remember that the rules are 3 minutes to speak. Thank you very much.
Good evening, I'm Marty Farrell. I live in Litchfield Country Club. I'm in complete agreement with the opposition to the rezoning of the Gilmore property, but tonight I want to address a related issue on the agenda. I'm here to express opposition to the suggested changes to the current draft of the land use element, all of which favor higher density projects in the future. These changes wanted by the planning director to the third, or I think it's the third draft proposal of the land use element, are clearly intended to make higher density development easier on the neck. None of the land use drafts to date have allowed public input. However, KIG has issued a position statement, which all of you should have received, and there are other groups on the neck who want their opposition to higher density heard also. So it's time to allow public input on the land use element. Concerning page 21's suggested change, Mr. Johnson claims that increased density standards could be coupled with regulations that would cure all ills, blah, 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 but he has yet to come forth with any of these miracle regulations for public consideration. He claims that this will result in improved walkability, biking, pedestrian access, but he once again ignores issues such as traffic congestion, evacuation safety, etc. When given an opportunity to include sidewalks and/or bike paths in the revamping of the Martin Luther King intersection with Pettigrew and the paving of Pettigrew at Stables, the requests of the local residents, me included, were rejected. All we wanted were sidewalks and a protected bike path for kids, parents with strollers, and bike riders to have a safe way to get to Stables Park. So why should we believe things will change? Concerning page 23, this sentence concerning attainable housing strikes me as purely political. Attainable housing is never defined and once again ignores other related issues such as traffic congestion, etc. It has been put forth that our first responders and teachers can't afford to live on the neck. This is an issue that needs to be addressed in Columbia. Our first responders and teachers deserve pay raises, not cheap housing. Concerning page 24, once again, the 90-foot setback on Highway 17 is under attack. The citizens of the neck have repeatedly supported the 90-foot setback. None of the suggested ideas justify changing it. There are already processes in place for developers to appeal the setback on a case-by-case basis. Broad allowances should not be made on this issue. I am not aware of a single infill development proposal that has been discouraged by the setback. And I also suspect that GSATs and the South Carolina Department of Transportation would like to see the setback remain so that the land is available for future turning lanes and other such road improvements that might be needed in the future. Abandoning the setback would only needlessly and greatly increase the cost of any such road improvements. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Ms. Tiffany, who is next?
That's all for public input.
Okay, just for the public. All right, we'll close that public input period and enter into item 2, rezonings. Item A is a request from David Collins to rezone one parcel located at the southeast corner of Powell Road and Harris Landing in Georgetown from rural general residential, RG, to general commercial. Who has this topic? Holly? Judy. Judy,
I do.
thank you.
Randy, could you please turn it to the zoning map? The parcel is located at the corner of Powell Road and Harris Landing Road, contains approximately 1 acre, and is currently vacant. The owner is proposing to build a 20 by 20 snack shop for boaters on the way to the landing. The site meets the minimum lot area requirement for the GC zoning district, which is 10,000 square feet. Surrounding tracts to the north, east, west, and south are zoned RG, Rural General Residential. There is a large parcel, 87 acres, to the southwest that is zoned General Commercial, and there are several parcels to the southeast zoned Forest and Agricultural. Surrounding uses are single-family residential, a church, and a cemetery. According to Article 11 of the zoning ordinance, convenience stores require 1 parking space for every 200 square feet of gross floor area. If a 400 square foot snack shop is built, 2 parking spaces would be required. The southern boundary of this parcel abuts single family, so a level 3 buffer would be required if this property develops as commercial. The future land use map designates this property as low density residential. All surrounding property is designated as low density residential, with the exception of several properties located directly across from the parcel on Powell Road. Future land use map would need to be changed to commercial in order to facilitate this request. Staff recommends denial of the proposed rezoning from RG to GC, as it can be viewed as spot zoning. More than adequate general commercial zoning is available in the neighborhood. However, staff does suggest that if the property is rezoned, that neighborhood commercial is considered. And Mr. Collins is here if you have any questions.
Great, thank you. So if we chose neighborhood commercial, wouldn't that be spot zoning?
Can I comment on that?
Yes, you can.
Of course, spot zoning is a big planning concept nationwide. Interestingly, South Carolina state law enabling legislation does not mention spot zoning. So communities handle that in different ways throughout South Carolina. Some have been argued it doesn't even exist as an issue in South Carolina. Good planning practice, I think, usually mean we look at it as it does exist in some capacity. However, we don't have a policy here in Georgetown County. So I would encourage us, totally independent of what you have in front of you tonight, is something to work on in the near future, is some type of policy on spot zoning, probably through some type of zoning ordinance amendment. The city of Georgetown, I hope I'm correct, a few years ago, they adopted a policy of 2 acres, I believe is what they have before. As long as it's 2 acres, they don't view it as spot zoning. We've had other planners advise us in the past that one way of looking at it is you look at the various sizes of the lots in the neighborhood, and you sort of look at the smallest smallest existing parcel, use that as a basis. The bottom line is you really need to come up with you being Georgetown County, through the Planning Commission, come up with some policies on that. But when we looked at the map, we wanted to mention it because there's a large, as you can see from the map, there's a large general commercial tract not too far away, and then you have this fairly small piece next door. So the bottom line is you can act on it tonight, but we certainly don't see any legal pitfalls or challenges particular to that issue, but we do think it's something you should address because it's going to come up again. It's come up in the past. It's just something that's never been addressed.
Okay.
Kind of the concept behind it is not so, part of the main thing you look at is you don't want to pick one property, particularly tiny little small property, and zone that away so you're really giving some kind of extra benefits to that one property owner that the other surrounding property owners don't enjoy. That's really the concept behind it, is to sort of prevent that, which I guess you could call misuse of zoning.
Okay. Any more questions for Judy or Boyd before we have Mr. Collins come up, answer any questions?
I have a question.
Okay, Sandra.
Why is that big giant commercial property back there?
I don't know. The North Santee area hasn't been zoned nearly as much as some other areas like the Wacomonac and area around Georgetown, even some areas around Andrews. But when it was zoned a few years ago being 15 to 17 years ago, I do know that there was extensive work with the neighborhood there. So that's when actually I think the county created a brand new zoning district. Was it called Rural General Residential, I believe? But specific to your question, I don't know why it is such a huge tract of land zoned general commercial. There's another piece right across the road that's by itself, and that's actually a church. I don't know why the church is zoned that way either. I assume 17 years ago, the property owners probably requested the county to do it, and the county was trying to get that neighborhood zoned, so that's what they did.
And all of this was basically done 15 years ago?
Yes, the whole entire neighborhood. I don't think anything was zoned from like the airport south.
That sounds right. Mr. Collins, would you like to come up and make any comments? If you want us to ask you questions or have anything else to add, come on to the mic.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Pretty much in the North Santee section, I just want to do a little snack shop for the community. If you're working in your yard or I run my business, I have a logging company, and I run my business from my home, and I do all my work on my equipment. I have guys that help me, and it's about 15 miles from North Santee into Georgetown. If you want something cold to drink, like a Gatorade or something to eat, we got to make that travel. So owning that spot, it was my idea to do something for the community as well as for myself. And back in the days, there used to be a store right across the street, Schubert Grocery, and one was right next to it, within about 50 feet. And those was, stores we had to use. Then probably about 3 miles down the road, but every store in that area is closed down. You can't get anything out there, and that is, an idea of something I wanted to put up.
So you want to provide a service to your community. That's great.
To the community, yes.
That's true. Do you have any objection to the recommendation about neighborhood commercial, if that's an acceptable?
No, that's fine.
Okay. Rather than go fully GC, because that would open up the door to a lot more.
Right. Neighborhood commercial would be fine. I can agree
Any more
with that.
questions for Mr. Collins? Thank you, sir. We may have another question, but hopefully
Okay.
we have enough information. Thank you.
All right.
Anything else? Comments?
We do have 2 people signed up for public input for
Thank
this
you.
case.
Thank you.
Herbert Dennison.
Mr. Dennison, if you can come up to the mic, about 3 minutes. Thank you.
My name is Herbert Dennison, and I live on Dennison Trail. Several years ago, I was part of getting North Santee zoned. And the thing about it is this property is right across from me like. And I would love to see this property remain the same as it is. To put a place out that people start stopping, making noise and stuff like that. I'm 83 years old, and I like to spend the rest of my days in a quiet neighborhood, because I know exactly what's going to happen. People are going to start hanging out there. People are going to start hanging out there, and it's going to be noise and all that stuff like that. I spent 30 years in the United States Navy, and I come out and went back to college and worked for 15 years as a property manager. I built my house in 1972 and raised my 4 kids, sent them to college, and I would love to spend the rest of my days there in peace without having noise. When those stores and stuff were there, the place were not zoned. And they're not there now. And we would love to keep this the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next person,
Morris Johnson.
Mr. Johnson. There's something wrong with that mic. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Marsh Johnson. I live in the North End area also. I was born and raised there. And at one time, I run the operator club out there. And it all depends upon the individual or the operator of a business. And I don't think that we should handicap anyone from operating a business. There is no business out there in North Santee now. There's nothing out there now. I live out there, and if I want a bottle of water or soda, I got to either come to Georgetown or come to Georgia. Even for a gas station, there's one out there. And that area, we've always had our store out there. And I can't see now, I'm 76 years old, right behind Mr. Dennison. But because someone operates a business, it doesn't mean that that business is going to be run undesirable to the community. We have a deputy sheriff out there, goes out there, patrol out there. Matter of fact, we have a deputy sheriff live out there. And it's up to the individual to control this business. And I don't think that we should handicap anyone from doing what they want to do by not zoning. I too was instrumental in zoning the county, and actually all the main roadway was supposed to have had a space for zoning, 17 and Powell Road. And in recent years, it sort of gotten, I guess, lost in their shuffling of the papers. But when it was originally zoned some years ago, Santee, the whole of Powell Road, it was 24 then, was supposed to have been zoned, the front part of it was supposed to have been zoned commercial. And some time ago, in shuffling of the paper, then it got probably lost in the paperwork or whatever the case is. But there's no reason why you should not zone that business commercial. We spot zone all over Georgetown County now. Spot zoning is all over Georgetown County now. I know it for a fact because of the fact that I travel a lot on it. And I don't think that this should be handicapped because of changing the ordinance. You don't know how business is going to run until it's run there, and then if it's run bad, then we close it down, that's all. But no one should be denied the right to pursue their adventure. I wouldn't want somebody to do it to me. I got property all over Santee, Georgetown County. And I wouldn't want nobody to handicap me with what my potential are. And it's because of the fact that we can't always buy the property that's always zoned commercial. We got to use what we have. I thank you all, and I sure hope that you allow Mr. Collins to follow his dream, and if the property becomes desirable, then we close it down. We close property down all over Georgetown. Thank you.
That's all.
Okay, that'll close the public input period. Questions for staff? Any other questions? Ready to, the chair, I'm getting a lot of feedback here, sorry. Chair will entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we rezone the neighborhood commercial.
Mr. Freddie has made a motion to rezone it for neighborhood commercial. And we have a second from Mr. Gray. Any more questions, discussion? If not, all in favor of that motion, please raise your right hand. Any opposed? The motion is carried. There you go, Mr. All right. Moving on to the next topic. Thank you, Mr. Collins, and all for coming in. We appreciate it.
Do we need a flu map motion also for that? A flu map motion?
Who would like to make the motion about the future land use map?
I'll make the motion.
Freddie has made the motion to amend the future land use map. I need a second.
Second.
Second from Ms. Bundy. Any more discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed? Motion carried. Flu map has been amended. Okay, the next item is a flexible design district. Item 3 is a request from Bruce Watts as agent for Calvin Gilmore to rezone approximately 3.28 acres from 1/2 acre residential, R1/2 AC, to a flexible design district, FDD. The purpose of this request is to construct a new 14-unit multifamily development. Properties located on the southeast corner of Waverly Road and Kings River Road in Pawleys Island. Holly, you have this?
Yes, ma'am. If you can go to the next slide, Randy, please. This property is located at the intersection of Waverly and Kings River Road in Pawleys. The tract has significant frontage on both of the streets, and the 3.28 acres exceed our minimum 2-acre requirement for a flexible design district. The property is bordered by single-family residential to the south and the east, and multifamily residential to the west, and the surrounding property is owned R1/2 to the south, R10 to the east, and a planned development to the west. Randy, if you could skip the next couple. One more. One more. There you go. The proposed plan is for a multi-residential development to be located within 3 separate buildings. Building 1 has 4 units. Buildings 3 and 4 will contain 5 units each, and each unit is planned for 3 bedrooms with a garage. The plan has a 30-foot setback off Waverly Road, a 42-foot setback off Kings River Road, and there are 40 feet of separation between the buildings. The pervious-impervious ratio for the plan is 75% pervious, 25% impervious. This exceeds the normal requirement for multifamily residential, which is 50-50. Additionally, 2.4 acres of the property will remain undisturbed with the exception of a retention area that will have to be put in for stormwater. The building coverage for the site is limited to about 10%. The applicant is showing an access point off Waverly Road across from Woodville Circle and a second access point off Kings River Road. Both of them are located to be as far away from the intersection of Waverly and Kings as possible. They will need encroachment permits from SCDOT for both of the curb cuts. The drive through the development is proposed to be asphalt, although the driveways will be made of pervious material, and the drive is proposed at 24 feet wide. There are 3 parking spaces indicated for each of the units. 2 of those will be in the garage, and then 1 outside the unit. And again, the parking areas will be pervious. This exceeds the requirement of 2 spaces for each unit in the zoning ordinance. Also in your packets, I don't think we have them on the PowerPoint, but there are renderings, sample renderings for each of the buildings. The height limit will be limited to 35 feet measured at the midpoint of the roof, which is the countywide standard. The plan indicates a gross density of 4.27 units per acre with a net density of 4.95 units per acre. The plan is showing a level 2 buffer to be planted along the southern boundary where the adjacent single-family homes are located. In terms of trees, the plan is showing the retention of 83 trees. The largest tree on the site is a 40-inch live oak, which is near Building 1, which is why Building 1 is showing 4 units as opposed to 5. So the oak tree will be retained. The largest tree that's being removed is a 28-inch gum tree that is coming out for building number 3. There are no other trees over 25 inches in diameter that will be removed, and the clustering of the 3 buildings will also allow the remainder of the property to remain undisturbed and be used as green space with the exception of the retention area. Speaking of retention, the stormwater is planned to be handled with a series of catch basins throughout the site, which will empty into the previously mentioned retention area. You can see there, number 13, we had a meeting with the Utility Coordinating Committee back on August 5th. There weren't any major issues that came up or were discussed at that meeting. As far as signage, the applicant intends to place minimal signage on each of the columns at the entrances. The zoning ordinance allows for 40 square feet of signage for a residential development at each entrance. He'll be significantly below that. If you could skip back a slide, Randy, maybe one more. There you go. Future land use map designates this property as low-density residential. The proposed net density of 4.95 units per acre is considered medium density according to our comprehensive plan. Currently, there's low density located to the north, east, and the south of the tract. There's a high density designation to the west of the tract, and medium density is located 380 feet west and 250 feet southeast of the property. The expected annual daily trips for this development is 84 trips per day. That's 6 trips per day for each unit. And this, of course, is significantly less than the 500 trips per day threshold that we have to kick in the traffic study requirement. There's been a lot of talk about a potential for a roundabout at this intersection. That is part of a draft transportation study that's being worked on right now. So that is certainly not in the works. Like I said, it's a recommended thing in a draft study we have right now, but we did want to be sure that the potential need for right-of-way could be accommodated. We certainly wouldn't want to have a building there and there be future right-of-way issues. Moving the buildings as far south as possible leaves adequate room for something that might be needed potentially for that in the future. As you know, the applicant is requesting a FDD, Flexible Design District. The language in our zoning ordinance reads that an FDD is intended to provide opportunities to create more desirable environments for single or mixed-use developments through the application of flexible and diversified land development standards under a comprehensive review process. The applicant is required to provide a narrative that talks about how this project better impacts the natural and human environment than a more typical district. The applicant did provide a letter in his packet addressing those. The property is currently zoned half-acre residential. That could potentially allow for 6 half-acre single-family lots on the tract. The letter refers to the potential for 6 3,000-square-foot homes for a total of 18,000 square feet of building, which would exceed what is proposed here for the 4 buildings, which total 14,560 square feet. The 6 individual parcels would also require multiple curb cuts, and some of those cuts would have to be located much closer to the Waverly-Kings River Road intersection than shown in this plan. The installation of the 6 single-family homes on half-acre lots would also not allow for the clustering that is shown here, and the distribution of the homes would result in the removal of numerous trees for both the homes, accessory buildings, and driveways as well. Section 631.4 also talks about higher densities and FDDs. It says higher densities shall only be allowed when strong evidence is presented that affordable housing will be promoted, usable open space will be increased, or the natural environment will be enhanced. Staff feels like the proposed plan will allow for a larger amount of usable open or green space than a typical single-family development. We do feel that deed restrictions or conservation easements should be put in place to ensure that the green area shown remains as such in perpetuity. The natural environment will be enhanced by the reduction in the number of curb cuts at a busy intersection, the increased amount of open space, and the reduction in the amount of impervious surface with only 10% of building coverage and 25% of impervious surface, and the natural buffer that will be maintained around the perimeter of the property. Based on, and I have my numbers wrong here in my report, based on the applicant's statement listed in number 18 and the justification listed in number 19 of your staff report, staff is recommending approval of the request, subject to final approvals from all the necessary agencies. We've also included that the building structures should have a minimum roof pitch of 412 and that the building materials should meet the requirements of the Waccamaw Neck Commercial Corridor Overlay Zone. We're also recommending that a deed restriction or a conservation easement be put in place for the undeveloped property so that it will remain undeveloped and natural. An amendment to the future land use map is also required to redesignate this tract as medium-density residential. And finally, the provision of an easement for a future bike path along the western property boundary of Kings River Road. Answer any questions. I think you did get a good bit, we got a good bit of correspondence on this issue, which is in your addendum as well.
Did have a lot of correspondence attached. The packet's pretty thick. Question about the tree. Is there a tree plan that's even been submitted at this point other than just the conceptual that you all, more a different level of tree plan, just the basic?
No, I think you have the one that received it. It does have the calculations in the top right corner. Randy, if you could go two more slides maybe. Back to the plan. There you go. That's where the landscape architect has laid out the number that'll be removed, the number they're keeping, the number they'll need to plant back. And basically, when they're planting that buffer, those count as replacement trees too. She's telling us what they're going to plant along that buffer as well.
Thank you. And more questions for Holly? I'm sure there are more questions. If not, we'll hear from the applicant, then open up for the applicant to speak. Is he here? Okay.
Mr. Watts?
Thank you. We may have some questions for staff.
I wish you kept the microphone over there. I wouldn't have to walk across this crowd. All right,
Is it on?
it's on.
Can you speak in, lean down a little bit, or pull it up so we can hear you better? Thank you.
All right, the first thing I would like to address, if I could, some misinformation on social media, and I apologize to the recipients. First, Councilman Steve Goggins has taken a lot of abuse and bad characterization on this project. I would like to apologize to him and make the public aware that Councilman Goggins is not involved in any way in this design or has a master plan that he may have drawn for Mr. Gilmore earlier, is not involved in any of this. Councilman Goggins is no part of this plan whatsoever. The project, the current prospective developers originated plans, and sorry to Councilman Goggins for that. Second, I'd like to apologize also to Calvin Gilmore, who I'm representing, through the developers. It states in the same flyer that in social media that Calvin Gilmore was financially benefiting off the community by increasing the density of the property. Not true. The listing price on the property remained the same, and the prospective developers are the ones that had this put into the contract. You know, his price never increased or whatever. The only thing that Mr. Gilmore put into this contract, the purchase to buy contract, was that they leave the trees. So saying that, I think, well, I'd like personally to apologize to the two because they're getting a lot of bad characterization out there and they didn't do anything. He's just selling the property the same price if it was 6 lots or the 14 lots. And Steve wasn't involved in this at all. I think the Planning Commission did a real good job of spelling out what I'm trying to do. And what I'll do is wait for the rebuttal on, if there is a rebuttal from the crowd.
We may have some more questions for you if you
Sure.
have you answered later. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, we have a comment period. This specifies a level 2 buffer, Holly? And what's the difference between that and level 3 in terms of our qualifications?
Level 2 level 2 just requires more trees for every 100 feet.
Okay.
over a level 1. A level 3 would require even more, but a level 2 is what's required when a new multifamily comes in adjacent to an existing single family.
So that's similar, but because it's flexible design, we could advance
That's
further
correct. You could
requirements.
require a level 3 buffer there. That's the, I guess, the benefit of the FDD.
Okay. Thank you. Right, we'll open it up to public comment period. Who has signed up? to
Mary
speak?
Beth Klein.
And just remind everybody, try to keep your comments, if they're similar, try to make different comments so we can get through and hear everybody's comments, not too repetitive. Thank you very much.
Okay, good evening, Madam Chairman and Planning Commission. My name is Mary Beth Klein, a resident of Pawleys Island and a member of Keep It Green. We are here tonight to ask that you recommend denying the request to rezone this property for 4 main reasons. Number 1, you should deny this request because it increases density over and above what the county approved in the 2015 Comprehensive Land Use Map, and specifically goes against the paragraph that the county subsequently adopted, which clearly states that no more density should be introduced to the neck beyond what is currently planned. If congestion, safety risk, traffic, flooding, and failed infrastructure was enough of an issue for our county to adopt this wording into our current plan, then it's surely even more relevant today. Any action to rezone beyond what is in our current plan to allow for higher density is an action against the citizens of the neck. Number 2, you should deny this because it increases traffic at a beautiful but already congested and dangerous intersection. What wasn't in the proposal is that this intersection feeds 3 schools and 2 large churches, making it almost impossible to get through at certain times. The project adds 84 trips to an intersection that's already unsafe. The planning department received over 100 emails from citizens concerned about traffic and density at this intersection, requesting that the zoning be denied. Number 3, you should deny this because, with all due respect to the planning department's opinion, this is not better for our environment. Yes, 83 trees will remain, but 45 will be cut down, and many of those are protected. Clearly more than if it remained as is, and certainly more than the 4 to 5 homes would keep on their properties. Additionally, the tree clearing only serves to increase already significant flooding at this intersection. Finally, there are very serious legal considerations that need to be considered that point to denying this request. So in closing, I leave you with this thought. This request for rezoning does not benefit the citizens of the neck in any way. Profit is the only motive for this request, and unfortunately, it comes at the expense of safety and quality of life for our citizens. Please don't let that happen. We respectfully request that you deny this application. Thank you.
Next. Miss Tiffany, who's
Cindy
next?
Person.
Someone was called, someone's name was called.
Cindy Person.
Good evening. My name is Cindy Person. I live in Litchfield Country Club, and I am also here to oppose the request to change the zoning at the corner of Waverly and Kings River. And I would like to highlight my understanding of the law that must be applied and followed in this situation. First, as I'm sure the Commission is aware, it is your obligation to make recommendations that protect and promote the safety and welfare of all the people who live in the community you serve. So safety is the #1 issue. I use this intersection daily, and I'm not going to go into all of the traffic problems because I think other people are going to address that. But we simply do not need a zoning change to allow even higher density and more traffic than we already have at this already dangerous and congested intersection. Second, there is no right on the part of a property owner to have a zoning change. The law is very clear that the only right a landowner has is to use his property in accordance with the way it was zoned when he bought it. In this case, it was zoned, thank you. In this case, it was zoned 1/2 acre residential. A change in zoning can be considered only, this is the law, when it is a public necessity or when the general public welfare justifies it. And the burden is on the applicant to prove that. It's not on the people to prove that it's not. The applicant has not even attempted to address that burden because there is not even an arguable public necessity. Third, the adjoining property owners and the community have a right to expect that the zoning of the property in their community will not be changed to adversely affect their property and their safety. And we have the right to input into this decision for a zoning change. Hence, all the people you see here tonight, all the people that are following on live streaming, and all the emails, hundreds of them, that you received in opposition to this zoning change. We are the people you serve, and we are the people you're required to represent. Fourth, the proposal increases density, which, as Mary Beth pointed out, is specifically prohibited by the comprehensive plan, and it does not meet the exceptions outlined in the ordinance. The FDD format I would submit is a slick tool that's often used by developers to get around density restrictions and by making it look like there is an environmental upside, and there is no upside to this request. When you cut through the smoke and the mirrors, it doesn't take fancy math to figure out that 14 units on a space that's currently zoned and in all likelihood would accommodate only 4, but 6 at the max, is substantial and unwarranted increase in density at an intersection that's already congested and plagued with traffic and safety issues. And finally, I just want to close by saying the applicant has not provided everything required by the ordinance. He's requesting your approval conditioned upon later providing the missing pieces behind the scenes and out of the public eye, and the public has a right to have the input to know and to have the input into all the details of the plan, not just some of them. So we would respectfully request for all these reasons and implore you to recommend denying this request. Thank you.
Next,
Dwayne Draper.
you'll have to repeat the name.
Dwayne Draper.
We have 3 minutes, okay?
Got it.
Thank you.
My name is Dwayne Draper, and I'm a resident of Litchfield Country Club. I'm also a South Carolina master naturalist, and I'm here to speak in opposition to the Waverly and Kings project request for rezoning. My concerns are threefold. Increased density on the lower Waccamaw Neck beyond what is already planned, increased traffic at an already busy four-way stop intersection, and increased flooding due to property drainage, tree removal, stormwater runoff, and retention pond design and management. Increasing density contradicts land use goals for the Waccamaw Neck as stated in the current land use element, as has already been mentioned, but I'll quote, "The key now is to limit the number of new residential units that are added so the impacts of additional development, i.e. increased traffic congestion, increased stormwater runoff, greater pressures on our overall infrastructure are minimized as much as possible. Traffic at Waverly Road and Kings River Road as a four-way stop is already heavy, sometimes dangerous. Within a mile of the intersection are two large schools, Waccamaw Elementary and Waccamaw High School. There are also, within half a mile, two large congregations with their attendant traffic flows. The Waverly and Kings Plan projects an additional 84 vehicle trips per day, which will create additional risk at the intersection and create additional burden to both Route 17 and Kings River Road. Clearing and filling for the project will involve the removal of 45 trees, a third of the property, many of which are considered protected. Trees contribute to the overall hydrologic health of the environment, absorbing water and filtering nutrients. Removing and filling behind these trees will alter the natural drainage of the landscape, potentially leading to other unintended stormwater runoff issues. The plan calls for inclusion of a retention pond and catch basins to funnel runoff to the pond. Not all runoff may be captured by the catch basins, depending where they're located. There is a 2.4 acre remaining section that is undisturbed, other than installing the pond. And unlike a detention pond, runoff is not gradually released into another body of water. So as a master naturalist, I'm also concerned about the process, making recommendations before issues are properly vetted. Is the retention pond catch basin system properly designed for the property and our historic rain events? Has stormwater management reviewed the plan and approved? Is there a retention pond maintenance and management plan in place, and who is responsible for executing that? Will there be an HOA, and will it be their responsibility to execute such a plan, as is common elsewhere with limited success? In heavy rain events, will stormwater run off overtop the retention pond when it is full, and will it then run into the roadways? Kings River Road already has flooding issues from heavy rain events in low-lying areas. What is the cumulative effect of adding an additional retention pond to the area? No project happens in a vacuum. I respectfully request that you keep our community safe by recommending that the project be denied.
Check. Sullivan.
Good evening.
Good evening. Can you hear me? So I don't have to touch this. Thank you. Is that better? Okay. Chairwoman and Planning Commission members, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'm Beverly Sullivan. I also live at Litchfield Country Club. Today, the Coastal Observer once again reported that the planning staff is recommending approval for an amendment to the Georgetown County zoning map from single-family to flexible design district of the Gilmore property. Section 631.4 of our county ordinances states that higher densities shall only be allowed when strong evidence is presented that affordable housing will be promoted, usable open space will be increased, or the natural environment will be enhanced. In number 19 of points to consider, the applicant attempts to use these words to build support for the idea that his plan is warranted. Criteria number 1, affordable housing will be promoted. Now, we all know that that's not going to happen because that doesn't appear to be profitable to developers. Number 2, usable open space will be increased. The applicant goes to great lengths to try to justify this one when he states that the current R1/2 AC zoning would potentially allow for 6 3,000 square foot homes, I'm shaking, which would exceed the proposed 14,500 square feet of building for the 14 townhome units. Well, what if not potentially, but in reality, it only allowed for 5 single-family homes? That would be 15,000 square feet, resulting in exactly 500 square feet less. On the other hand, let's say it really only allows 4 units. In that case, there would be an increase of 2,500 square feet of open space. Criteria 3, the natural environment will be enhanced. Good luck convincing this community that a towering 3-story building is more enhancing to a property than 3,000 square foot homes. That will, in the result, will end in less traffic, better safety, and make it easier for us to navigate the roads. The community, do not be fooled by deceiving narrative. The community certainly is not, and we say no, not here, not now. Thank you.
Marla Hamby from Keep It Green.
I asked to have page 23 from the 2015 Land Use Plan placed in front of the appointed volunteer planning commission members and the paid county planning department staff members. I encourage you to start following these guidelines that were accepted and voted on in 2015 and make sure that they are in the 2020 land use plan. I'm going to now read part of page 23 for the benefit of the concerned public in attendance. An informed public may then be asked, why hasn't this been followed? The overriding issue in Pawleys and Litchfield, the overriding issues in the Pawleys-Litchfield area is population density. The general concept of allowing higher density to prevent sprawl is no longer applicable in this area. The key is now to limit the number of new residential units that are added. There are others speaking about specifics, so I'm not going to do that. Instead, I want to impress upon all of the officials in Georgetown County that the Waccamaw Neck does not want high density in any shape or form. There was, in my opinion, a huge statement made by the citizens of the Waccamaw Neck in the June primary election. Bob Anderson, who ran for county council on a platform of preventing future high-density growth on the Waccamaw Neck, defeated a long-serving councilman with 63% of the votes on the neck. If the other 2 districts on the neck would have been able to vote, it would probably have been 90% or higher. The members of the public here tonight in opposition to the zoning change of single-family half-acre lots located on the corner of Kings River and Waverly should be a huge wake-up call to this county. With the COVID-19 pandemic still uncontrolled, these people in essence have risked their lives to be here in person. Please let that sink in. They have risked their life to say no more high density on the Waccamaw Neck. It is time for the planning department to represent the tax-paying residents of the Waccamaw Neck, that includes Merle's Inlet and Garden City. 79.6% of the total property taxes collected by the entire Georgetown County are paid by those residents. We appreciate your service, but it appears that the recommendations in the 2015 land use plan have been totally disregarded on the Waccamaw Neck, and it appears there's an effort to remove page 23 from the 2020 10-year land use plan. We, the people, want to know why. Thank you, and I ask you to give it.
Robert Nichols.
Hi, I'm here as a resident of Woodville Acres, which is directly across from where they're proposing to put their street coming out. Right now, the way it stands during school time or church time, it's almost impossible for us to get out of our street the way it is. The other concerns are the water runoff. When we have a major storm or hurricane, the water from there goes into the Waverly, goes across Waverly, goes into a tidal stream or creek that goes behind our house. Where's all that going to go when they start doing this? The retention or the bar ditch or storm runoff ditch on their side fills up and overflows. That's a major concern. Our neighbors, the other thing was, I didn't get a notice of this. My house is there. Nobody in our development, except for one person that I know of, got notice of what's going on here, and we just got it. The signs have been taken down so nobody could read them and see that there was a meeting tonight. The other concern is what's going to happen with our property values. We're all retirees basically in there. We bought these houses thinking that we're going to be able to sell them and get out, and now you're going to put in a high-rise or condos. I assume they're condos. What's that going to do to us? I don't know all the rules and regulations for all this stuff, but I do know that this is going to affect all the people that live in Woodville Acres, and I'm sure the intersection and everybody else that goes through there.
Thank you.
Paul Barnes. Paul Barnes. Okay, we'll
Go to the
move
next
on
one.
to Janice Coward. No. Craig Daniel. No. I'm sorry, I can't read this handwriting. Heather or Dennis. I can't read the last name. Kinder.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you so much for allowing us to speak. My name is Heather Kinder. I'm here with my husband Dennis Kinder and my neighbor Nicole Barksdale. And we live in Ricefields neighborhood, which is a single-family neighborhood about a quarter mile from the intersection that we're discussing. And I'm here tonight to ask you to please do not approve or please deny this application for rezoning. And I can't add a lot of detail. I don't want to rehash what's already been discussed, but I do want to paint a little bit of a picture because this is my first planning commission meeting. What drove me here is being a resident of a community like this, which is a small town community. The idea that we would start rezoning to this high density multifamily housing concerns me greatly. I just want to paint a picture for you. So the intersection there, for those of you who don't live and work there daily, you've got 5 other roads that come into this intersection. It's a 4-way stop. There's at least two large churches. There's also 2 large schools that all feed into this one intersection. The idea that a traffic circle, which was new to me until tonight, and my head almost popped off when I heard that term, because the idea that we could have a traffic circle that would solve the problems of additional housing around this intersection is, well, it's just unacceptable to me, because you got a picture of this. About 3 o'clock every day, you got high school students, new drivers. They're great, but they're learning. You got parents, you got school buses. You also have golf carts, which are allowed through there at 35 miles. You got bikers accessing the trails there along Kings River. You got delivery trucks, you got work trucks. And that's a very dangerous combination when you think about the addition of this property. And this property does concern me. in and of itself, but also what does it say for the future of rezoning? Because there's another 20 acres on that lot that the same owner has every right to sell in the future, and what's going to stop this planning commission in the future for also rezoning that particular property? So I ask you to not accept this request, and I also learned this evening during the comments that that the seller is not benefiting any more from one plan versus the other, which doesn't say anything about the selling. People can sell their properties for whatever they choose to, price-wise. But what it does tell me is that the same price for 6 single-family homes, and I think the size was 3,000 square feet. We all know that's a very large home. We know kind of what the price tag of that home would be in that area. And the idea that 14 townhomes would somehow provide any kind of accessible, low-income or cost-accessible homes is, we can kind of picture what those homes are going to go for. And so to me, it does put a very big price tag on what the developer is going to receive for having 14 homes or 15 homes versus the 6. And so again, please do not deny this request for residents like me who don't have any stake in it other than we want to maintain a peaceful living environment. Thank you so much.
Alan Welch.
Can you say it again?
Alan Welch.
Pass? Did you say pass? Okay.
Thomas Gordon.
Thanks for hearing us on this tonight. I live right there on the corner lot, right where Martin Luther King runs into Waverly Road. And I just wanted to address a couple of things as being a resident that's adjacent to the proposed, number one, the proposed cut-through. At the end of Partridge Lane, there's a lot that is also on Kings River Road. And the man has a driveway. And every day of the school year, he has to fight kids from cutting down our road to cut through to get a quicker to school and from school. What is this cut through going to be? And it's going to be in my backyard. You know, we get that these townhomes, or I guess they're townhomes, you know, would be less of a footprint, but yes, again, the density and the traffic, and you know, is there going to be brick columns? Is there going to be a gate? If there's not a gate, what's going to keep people from just cutting through? In other words, the four-way stop sign, who's going to go sit at it when they can just cut through? That makes no sense whatsoever. We all do know we have a water drainage problem there. Every time it rains, my backyard looks like a pond. You know, this is not going to help that situation for the residents on Partridge Lane. That ditch out there running along Waverly that runs down into Lower Waverly, it fills up. It doesn't drain. And we've asked it to be looked after, but it hasn't been. And so our yards drain over and over and over. Very quickly, we're happy that Mr. Calvin Gilmore likes the trees and doesn't want to affect the environment that much. And we believe that 4 to 6 homes on half acre would be better than this footprint. These are 3-story monstrosities, and they will look down into our backyards, which are currently private. Lighting. What kind of lighting is it there going to be? We're concerned about that. How bright is it going to be? How's it going to affect, you know, the wildlife there?
You know, I've seen multiple white-tailed deer romping through there. Woodpeckers. We know change is going to come, but this issue of rezoning that property, it just doesn't make sense to us. Thank you.
Anthony Cavalieri.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Thank you for hearing me. Just like to start by posing a rhetorical question. When in the history of man has man enhanced a natural environment? Okay? When? To even state something like that is arrogant, number one. Number two, I would like to say, is anybody considering the effect of the emissions? The residents, I'm a resident of Pawleys Island, each time one of these developments goes up, and from what I understand, there's another huge one going up on Pettigrew, which is not far from there. We don't have the infrastructure to support this, so all of the residents, all of us that are there now, you're putting us in a dangerous situation should there need to be an evacuation. How do we get out in a timely fashion when over the last couple of years the traffic on 17 has increased tremendously just in a couple of years? I strongly urge that you abide by the zoning laws that currently exist, and please turn this down. I have no problem with one-family homes, but to destroy that area with these high-rise buildings would just be a crime. It would really be a crime, and a traffic circle would be downright dangerous. We have a big population of senior citizens, and as was mentioned, brand new drivers from the high school. Traffic circles get confusing, and it's a dangerous intersection as it is. Thank you for hearing me, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Randy Cavalieri.
Thank you. You just heard my husband, so we're kind of hitting you from both ends here. When we considered moving down here, we rented a house on the island for 3 months. We were absolutely awestruck by the beauty here, the sensibility of the life here, and we immediately decided, after staying here for 1 week, that we were going to move to Pawleys Island. I am from New York City. I'm a born and bred Brooklynite, as my husband is. We have lived through literally urban sprawl. My husband grew up in an area which, believe it or not, was downright rural. It was not developed. He was able to enjoy nature at its fullest. And then back in the 70s, everything changed. Developers came in, cleared everything, built at least 2-story homes, and destroyed the natural beauty of the area. Now, when I decided to move here, my sister said to me, "Have you looked into the development of the town?" And I didn't, because honestly, I had no way of doing that. And I don't live in Litchfield Country Club, I live in Alston Plantation. But I tell you from the experience of living in a major city that has no regard at this point for the basic living conditions of its residents, how concerned I am now that this development and others like it, because we've seen a lot of new building going up since we've lived here in 21 months. It concerns me that another 10 years from now, we're going to turn into a Myrtle Beach, or worse yet, a New York City. From personal experience, I saw just in my own neighborhood in Brooklyn, which was more or less very residential with a few major shopping streets, I watched how a large one-family home was torn down around the corner from our house, which, by the way, was a little 18-foot wide by 80-foot deep row house. I can't tell you how many hundreds to thousands of people were packed into a block in our neighborhood. But I watched how a one-family house was torn down, replaced by 5 three-family homes. You cannot imagine the complaint of the neighborhood for the lack of parking, for the pollution, for the noise, for the lack of response to all these issues by the local government. I worry that we're going to deal with this here. So please, I implore you, as I said in an email to 2 of your planners, I implore you, stand up and say no to this development and all the others that will follow. Thank you for the time.
Next.
That's all.
That's it? Okay. Holly, are you taking notes?
Of course.
You want to go back over some points that you'd like to make, please? Just to, especially in terms of, I think the concern that there's some illegal processes that we've embarked upon, so.
I think, and that was in terms of the comprehensive plan?
Yes, in
and
terms of comprehensive
the
plan.
guide. The comprehensive plan is a guide to be used in making zoning decisions, and that language is from the 2015 plan.
Yeah, we can't really hear you very well.
Sorry.
You might have to, unmask.
Open up my glasses,
Sorry.
too. Comprehensive plan is a guide that is used for future development, and that is the language from the 2015 plan, or it's actually from the 2007 plan that was referenced. We did an update in 2015, if you'll remember. That was the latest update. But it is a guide that's to be used in zoning decisions. It does talk about higher densities. We do differentiate between medium density and higher density. These are townhomes. So it is a multifamily use, but it does fall within our criteria for a medium density development.
Any questions for, go ahead.
And the stormwater, this is a conceptual plan. We did send it to our stormwater department. And obviously, they have not reviewed, I think that question was there too, they have not reviewed engineered plans for the project. They did take a look at the conceptual plan and provide whatever comments they could at that stage, but the engineered plans, no, have not been submitted and reviewed by stormwater at this time.
And it kind of appears from the comments that I wrote down that most people were more concerned about traffic congestion and the number of people as opposed to saving trees, that was really the biggest issue was people coming.
We certainly got, a lot of the emails were about traffic as well.
Right. So not saving trees was not I didn't hear that from anybody. So, okay. Question?
I have a question.
Okay, I'll take your point. Thank you.
The trees are a given. We all know we love trees, so that's good. Where did the 3,000 square foot number come for these houses that were to be built?
I think that was in the, like I said, the applicant is required to provide a narrative. He did that in terms of a letter, and he proposed that as a comparison. Certainly, nothing says that they would have to be 3,000 square feet, and we don't give a minimum or a maximum. I think that was just a number he used for comparison's sake, is to my knowledge.
If he wants to answer that question, you can ask him if you'd like.
So,
Mr. Watts,
sure.
do you want to answer that question?
Is that the alternative plan that you have?
No, I was just basing, is this on? I was basing it off of a 2,500 square foot house with a 500 square foot garage.
Okay, just a general concept. Okay.
Okay, because I was kind of looking, the other corner has about 3.5 acres, and most of the square footage there equals to about 10,000 built for those places there, so it is a lot different. The other question I had, for their stormwater pond, if we're getting a roundabout there, what's gonna happen there, if you know? And the other is, how large is the surface of your stormwater pond?
I can comment, I can't comment on the size of the stormwater pond, but I will comment. We've had discussions with Stormwater Department, and they did note that, and matter of fact, first of all, there was a utility coordinating meeting, which SCDOT, I believe, participated in and looked at this project. They didn't make any comments. But anyway, Stormwater Department did say that down the road, when the intersection improvement project occurs, which is normal, that there will likely be a requirement to upgrade the pipe sizes at that intersection. Anytime you do a major intersection project, you probably would end up wherever you are, you end up putting in larger pipe size probably than what's there today.
There are pipes there?
Yes.
So is it gonna be kind of like what was done in Hagley, where you're gonna be putting in major piping because there's no real good infrastructure there now?
I don't know I don't know about the details. I just know I was told that when they tear up the intersection for the traffic and intersection improvement project, which I don't know when that would ever be, but when it happens, that would be the time that they would increase whatever pipe sizes are needed or whatever's there today. That was the comment from Stormwater Department.
Is this gonna be gated?
I don't know. I do not think it's proposed today. Bruce, you can...
It's not proposed right now, no.
I was just, it was interesting to hear one of the comments tonight where they were talking about people cutting through Partridge, because I drove down Partridge today before I came here. And I can see that happening, and I can see this being an alleviation for from traffic problems if it is allowed to go forward. So
I could see the same thing, and it probably, they would go back in and put some type of push-button gate in to get into it, off of the highway.
So my other question is, so as far as the flexible design, Holly or Boyd, when you're talking about the flexible design district, you're looking for something really special, right? I mean, my impression is that you're looking for above and beyond to protect what's there and to add and do something that's unique and not ordinary. So, I mean, this is just what I think. Whenever you're looking at a project like this, what I was very disappointed is you've got some pervious surface, but you're putting your road in and there's no consideration there for anything. It's going to be asphalt, rain gardens, any kind of BMPs to soak up some water or anything besides your pond, that's it?
If you were to look at the plan, it's pretty much leaving natural all the way. The only part landscape is the green part. All the rest is natural.
What I'm concerned about is you're putting your road abutting to the adjoining neighborhood. They don't have drainage there. I mean, they've been, I know that neighborhood's been there for a while. I mean, all the neighbors have been there for a while. But when you're talking about coming in with a new development, concern is that whatever you do there, you're going to strip all these trees and build a road, and of course you're going to direct all your stormwater to your pond, but we know that sometimes that doesn't necessarily work out.
I believe that's why we talked about the conservation and deed restrictions. We aren't stripping the trees. You know, if you look at the plan and the overlay, and that's what we did, we used this plan from a tree survey and did an overlay, and we've left every tree out there except where the roadways and the footprint of the buildings are.
What's your buffer between the Partridge property and your road?
The buffer from the house, from their property to the first building, is approximately 45 feet on one side and about 90 feet on the other side.
To your road?
To your road.
Your road that you're putting in?
I believe that's a 15-foot buffer.
15?
15-foot buffer.
And then the road?
And then the road.
Yeah, your larger buffers are on Kings and Waverly.
True.
Right, okay.
But the building is set back farther from Partridge Road, Partridge Lane.
I see what you're talking about.
I mean, when they're talking about the height of the building and so forth, it's actually farther back. You're looking at about, on one side, it's about 90 feet, and the other side, I think it's about 45 feet. So let's say if you had a single-family home, it would be a lot closer to the back property.
No questions? I'm sorry, we're done with the public comment period. Thank you.
So is there a plan submitted that has been submitted for this property for 6 lots? So they don't have to come to the planning commission to build anything they build?
Right.
Right. Okay.
That's correct.
Taking that in mind, I would like to, just down the street, there on Kings River Road, same road, and Beaumont, single-family homes. I could count the trees on maybe 8 or 9 lots on half of one hand. You know, we took this, when we laid this design out, we tried to keep our footprint small as far as Mother Earth. We took in the drainage control. We're going to contain all our water and try to contain whatever water overflows from other properties to us. We, ironically, our whole idea of this when we first proposed it was to keep it green. So that was our whole idea. We were keeping the trees, and if you look on that site, we pretty much have kept every tree that we could.
Boyd, Holly, anything else you want to add? Comments, questions? Nobody else has asked questions? Anybody got any of them?
Was mentioned, or Mr. Gordon, I believe, brought it up about this road being a cut through. And I can see where coming from the high school and going down Martin Luther King or Waverly back to 17, they're not going to go to the four-way stop. They're going to come right through here, hang a right, and keep on going. Is there anything that can be done to stop that?
Other than putting a gate in, you know, it's we tried to keep from doing gated communities, but we could put a some type of barrier.
Okay. Any more questions?
Do you know, does anybody know what the traffic counts are at this street right there?
There've probably been some old traffic counts for the circle, what the proposed circle we would know. We could pull up.
Certainly, that's in the study. We could get those. I don't have them in front of me right now, but those
But
have
that's
certainly
not-
been done for the
and
study.
That's not a funded project, is it?
No,
Lloyd?
ma'am.
Okay, so the traffic circle is conceptual at this
That's
point and not even in a design or funded, correct?
And the study is
No,
a
it's just
draft
a
study
plan.
at this point.
Okay.
Well, I think it's a really nice project. I just think it's the wrong place.
Since we are at that point where we have no more questions, anybody else? Okay. Boyd, Holly, anything else? Mr. Watts, anything else?
No, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everybody, for your time today. We appreciate all the input. Chair will entertain some motion.
I make a motion to deny the request for the rezoning.
Is there a second? Mr. Graham has seconded the motion. Thank you. Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion to deny the request for the rezoning, raise your right hand. 3 to 2. Opposed? 3 to 3. Motion fails because we're tied.
I'm
So-
sorry, did we have Mr. Weaver and Mr. Great opposed?
Yes, and Mr.
And Mr. Hill, thank you.
Correct. It was 3 to 3, so the motion fails. not a good thing.
It's not gonna pass either.
No, it doesn't mean it passed either, you guys, so we might have to deny. Boyd?
It would be good to have a positive vote to take to council, so if there was a motion.
Well, if we sent it with a no vote, no motion, what would they do?
You're
With a
supposed to
tie
make a
vote?
recommendation, I mean,
We can send it with a tie vote.
right now, only been a motion to deny, right? There's no,
The motion to deny failed.
There's
It
not
was
been a-
tied 3-3.
right,
So can we send it to council with that?
yeah. There's not been a motion to approve.
No.
If you do end up deadlocked 3-3, then obviously it would go to council with
Yeah,
with
they
no
get the
with
final
a
say,
with
right.
no recommendation. Which would be, I guess, which would be sort of tantamount, is that a word, tantamount?
What did you say?
To leave it like it is, to leave the property like it is, I would assume.
I can't hear the staff, please. I'm sorry, Boyd, can you repeat
I
that?
said I would think that to rezone the property, he would need a positive motion to rezone the property.
Correct.
So if it
It just fails, right.
If you do end up with a 3-3 vote, 3 in favor to rezone it, 3 in favor to not rezone it, in other words, tie either way you go since you've got 6 members, right? Then
Okay, so
it
we
would
can
go
entertain
as
another motion?
it would go as not a recommendation to rezone the property is the way I would interpret it.
Say that again? Couldn't hear you.
It would go as, if you end up with 3 of you feel it should not be rezoned and 3 of you feel like it should be rezoned, then I think it would go to council with, like you said, a no, not a recommendation. But since he needs a vote to rezone the property, I think it's tantamount to basically leaving the property as it is and not approving the project. But again, that would basically put the decision in county council's lap, which
Right,
is
so
where
we're
it
good.
rests anyway.
That was a long answer, but we're good.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Well, I say you're good. In
You
an
might,
ideal,
if you make us come back and do this again.
it would be nice to have a positive vote.
Well, if anybody, we're still open for business
Yeah,
here.
even
so-
if it ends up 3-3.
Right.
In other words, I guess you would have exhausted all your remedies.
We could say the motion to approve failed.
Right.
It was a motion to deny, though.
Right.
The motion to deny.
Failed.
Failed.
If we could also say a motion to approve failed, then you certainly would have exhausted all your remedies. Unless y'all decide just to stay here till midnight till one of you changes your mind.
Vote trade it. No. Okay,
Well,
we're done.
I think it's a very nice project, but again, I think it's the wrong place because there's so much going on there. And 6 houses and 12 cars or however many is gonna be a lot less than what this is gonna put there. And on top of that, whether a traffic circle is ever built there, you're still gonna have problems because we're not gonna get rid of any traffic. And I do not think that the flexible design district being used, I just think that I haven't seen anything that, I get that there's gonna be some trees saved, but I just don't see where a lot of other practices for green infrastructure or any of that stuff is put in here.
And I think you make a good point. Boyd, I think when we were talking about the flexible design district, when we first proposed it, that we were trying to get a lot of green space designated in developments, which always failed. Council always turned it down. So maybe we just need to tweak it a little bit more for defining. Sir, we're closed with the public hearing. I'm sorry. Thank you.
I'd like to say something.
And that was something we might need to further clarify.
I like the idea of all the green space that's left on this. It takes the buildings and puts them in closer. You have more green space around it. Probably from the four-way stop, you won't see that much.
Right.
Unfortunately, along the road and in their backyard, you will see the buildings. My concern on this is if it is left like it is and 6 homes are put on there, whether they're 1,500 or 3,000 square feet, you're going to have 6 curb cuts coming in there right at that intersection that is going to be a nightmare. And this relieves that somewhat.
The road has not, the lot hadn't been subdivided though. And whenever they go to do something like that, they're gonna have to take all that into consideration. Because it is one parcel.
The simplest thing would be is for the Keep It Green Committee to buy the property and make it a park.
Yeah. All right.
I mentioned earlier that there were 2 alternatives. I just thought there actually is a third alternative, and I don't have any clue what the developer would wish to do. But you certainly have the option of deferring the matter and sending, with the developer hearing your comments about adding some green infrastructure and that type thing, if you want to do that. Deferral is a third option, is all I'm saying.
Right, we knew that. Please stop commenting. We can't hear, please. Thank you. We already have made one motion and a failure, so, I mean, we defer. We'll be right back here.
I just don't think it's the right, it's not a, we don't need to be increasing density here.
Yes.
And if you look at all the properties nearby, you've got 1,500 square foot houses, 1,100 square foot houses. You don't have 3,000 square foot houses.
Okay. I realize that, somebody could make a motion to defer, but I'm not hearing anything. Anybody? Okay. Sorry, boy. Goes with the...
Just trying to move it.
Okay. That's right. Just remember, this is just a recommendation, so we don't have any power.
That's right.
At this point. Okay, other business. This is item 4, moving on. The land use element, Boyd, you're just going to give us an update, and we're at the point where we're kind of to a final draft that we want to have public input, so we need some help. Let's wait for everybody to clear the room that's going to leave. There's a lot of noise.
So that everybody understands, this is going to county council, and with the understanding of the motion
to deny
was failed, but it's not going with the motion to approve either.
Right.
County council.
County council is the next stop. You can look on their site. Thank you. It may not be the next meeting. It has to be scheduled, so. I thought people would be happy. So, okay.
Well,
all right.
We didn't have to rezone this.
No.
I mean, that's the bottom line. We don't have to.
Land use element, the draft is out and we've been receiving comments already. We want to know how fast we can get it out to the public and how we can quickly get some input further from everybody all throughout the county. So what is your proposal?
Well, it's not so much a proposal as just thoughts. Where we are, we've had, first of all, it's not gotten to the stage yet where we've requested public input, but we've received a lot of public input, which is a good thing. You've had workshops where you've heard, and talked about it. So it seems to me your choice right now is first of all, I don't think it's no longer an option on the table to us go on a road show and go into different communities because of COVID.
We did.
That's just not going to happen.
Right.
So I think your choice is, do we need to have another workshop or more one more or however many you want to have to go over things you've heard, or do you want to just go ahead and straight to the public input section and have a public hearing in this room and get public input? What we would envision, this is the only facility we really have that I think people can socially distance properly, so we sort of envision placing the maps out in the entranceway on the other side of the doors there, so people could see the maps. Also, we would have the maps available digitally so they could go online if they want to know how their property and their neighborhood was designated in the future land use map. And of course, then we would open it up in here for comments in the same setting and arrangement we have today. So it's really just a choice. Do you want to start getting official public input, or do you want to have any more workshops before you get there? I think it boils down to that.
I think, my opinion is we've had enough workshops. I want to hear from, we're already getting comments. We might as well start soliciting as much as we can to then go back and have you guys re-massage the, I guess Waccamaw Regional is still going to be involved at that point,
Oh, yeah,
or not?
sure.
Okay. Wasn't sure.
I do want to comment on that too when we get further down the road.
But that's just my feeling. I know we've met several times, but as I said, we've been getting emails and comments from people, so we need to make sure the entire county is involved and not just one piece of the county. So it would be helpful to have that online process available where people can email, see their charts, and see their maps.
We can certainly, whatever process y'all wish, we'll go down that road.
What do y'all envision?
Well, I'm just, because we have had input, what I'm wondering is how much of anything is going to change on what we've already seen?
Based on public input?
No, on the input that we've been getting from different people.
Okay.
I mean, I've sent some, and I don't know if anybody else has sent any. I don't know what's been changed, because this is a big deal and a big document.
I don't think we would send any changes to you based on public input that you've already received. I think we would do it all at once.
During the public meetings.
In other words, the written documents you've already received, when we get the input, then we'll add that information along with everything else that you've already received.
So
you've already got it. You certainly can read it and digest it and decide whether you like it or don't like it, but as far as us making changes to the document, I think it's better to get all the public comment.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you want us to go and make...
Well, we haven't, and that's the thing, we haven't
We
even
can do that
solicited
now if you
public
want.
comment.
If you want us to go back and start reviewing in detail the comments that's already been received, we can do that. That's, we'll do whatever you want us to do.
So we're talking about going to 3 different, like here, Polly's. And
No,
all
that's what we were, but now we're saying that's just not practical. We would say everybody come to this room.
Yeah, Boyd seemed to think that the Merle's Inlet Community Center, did you think that's not big
I
enough to do
just
something?
don't think that would be productive with the virus.
What about the library where the Polly's Library?
It's small too.
Yeah, it's small.
too.
So this is the only large.
This is the only place I know that I think people could.
So one meeting for all 3 areas.
I think one separate for each
Yeah, we
area,
did talk
wouldn't you?
about that. I forgot. Now, you could do it, again, there's all kind of ways you could do it. We could have one meeting in this room just for Merle's Inlet, and one meeting in this room just for the rest of the neck, or one meeting in this room for all the neck, and then a second meeting for the rest of the county. I mean, we could divide it up.
And just have them come
And
here in
that's
this
similar
bigger
what we did
space.
before when we did the road trip. We went out to the
Right.
communities, but now that we can't do that, you've got to find, so you need a way for
just
each
get 'em to
sector
come
of the county
here.
to participate.
Yeah.
Okay. What about the room next door to the right? Is that available or is that small?
It's available, but it's smaller than this.
Okay. So this would be the only space. Okay.
We could put that, maybe we could put the maps in that room as opposed to putting them out here.
And let them go in small groups at a time to look at them.
Okay.
Did y'all say we were not required to have but one meeting or not?
Actually, the only thing that has to happen is council's got to put an ad in the paper for 30 days and hold a public hearing. That's the only public input required, which is obviously not enough. So all this is other stuff we're proposing.
My concern is, which I called and asked Jackie today, because I think there's a lot of public input is missing from this process. And just looking at other communities, and I'm not trying to make us anybody else, but they started with the public first and getting community input, and then they developed their plan. So I feel like we're a little turned around on that. Community survey, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you get it.
I think it depends on, well, it depends on what you want to do, but I think those certainly lends itself, like, that's exactly what the county did in its visioning process and spent months and months and months working on that for a land use element that, you know, we're updating a document, and we've had land use maps for 30 years that we're working off of. You know, I don't know that it requires, so we always kind of like the idea of giving people a starting place instead of just walking in a room with a blank sheet of paper, you know.
Right. So what we need to give you guidance on is how many how many public hearings do we need? Do we want them separate?
Right.
Is that what I'm hearing? So
That's right.
Merle's Inlet, Pawleys, the rest of Georgetown County, Andrews. I mean, I think probably, my feeling is that for this side of town, don't you think a workshop for Georgetown and Andrews together would work, or Sanpet and Santee, or, because we can't travel to those outer places now to
Right.
try to, that's the real problem.
Mm-hmm.
We're
And-
going to come up with some type of comprehensive plan from Boyd and them, let them bring them back to us on what we need to be doing and how we want to do it. So that's just trying to sit up here and try to figure it out.
Right. Well, I'd like to see the input from everybody. And if you guys are going to start developing a spreadsheet with all the input, I guess that's how you're doing it. I don't know how you're collecting the
It's in a
data.
folder. Yes, ma'am.
So
that what-
is there a way we could put it online and just let people provide comments like that?
That's
Yes,
what we had
I
asked.
think
We're
we
going
would,
to do computers now.
we would do that
Well-
no matter what we do in terms of meetings. I mean, when we're ready, we can put the maps up on our webpage. We can talk to Jackie about the best way to distribute that on Facebook and let people go there, and we can set up, I mean, as easy as setting up an email just to receive comments. In the
Yeah, I
most
think you need a
basic way, we can do
combination.
that.
You have to have a combination of opportunities. But the advertising of those hearings and how many, and getting the people, the key leaders in those communities to get folks to be a part is going to be, really, we're going to rely on you guys and county council to ensure that your community constituents know about these meetings too, so.
Can
Okay,
we
they're
use
gonna
the
be real
schools,
disappointed
any of the
if it doesn't work
schools and
for
auditoriums or their cafeterias in these different areas?
I don't know. With them,
That would probably be the only place I could think of that may have a large room. Of course, I don't know if the schools would want to send the schools,
I
frankly.
think they're, since they're
Since I
locked
know
down, I'm
they're
not sure they
doing a lot of work disinfecting their buildings for the
Exactly.
kids, I kind of doubt they would want the public coming in there.
I mean, I wish we could have a meeting in Merle's Inlet because it's so far from here. You know, I mean, Pawleys Island, the Waccamaw Library, they've got that big room. I mean, do you think it would fill up? Do you think it's going to be like full of people?
I think it would fill up.
Yeah, I do, but you could, I mean, then you'd have to have somebody manage how many people can come in the room at a time, and people get angry because they have to wait, so I'm not sure what the,
Yeah, I think it would have to be like an informal thing, you know, people milling around and 20 can come in and then when they leave, 20, you know, people
Right.
kind of rotating in and out, as opposed to a more formal receipt of information here with y'all sitting up there.
What are we looking at? One more meeting in each place? Or are we looking at more than one meeting?
Well, that's y'all's call. We can have one big one, or like we said, we can have a
No.
meeting in this room just for
No, I don't mean all big meetings all together. I mean, we're gonna have, do we need to do this one more time, or do we need to go out two or three more times?
There's no legal requirement. It's just whatever y'all want to do.
But we should do it at least one time.
At least, oh, yeah.
absolutely.
Yes.
But also, we have to make sure we're getting enough, and if the sample input is not big enough, we know we have missed a mark. I think that's what we're gonna,
I mean, just
Be
the
fluid.
written input that we've already received is going to take quite a while to go through.
I have a question. are we tying all the other elements of the plan into the land use?
Only through verbiage that may be in some paragraphs in there. I mean, they're all independent elements. I mean, but they all comprise a comprehensive plan. You know, we consider the economic development plan. That's why, for instance, we may not put as much information in this land use element, say, as, for instance, describing the industrial parks, you know, number of businesses, acreage. Maybe we won't put all that information in this document. We could reference it, but all that information would be an economic development element. Same thing, you know, the natural resource element, the cultural resource element, population element.
Boyd, who is Walkmore Regional in charge of all those elements, or are
No,
you
we do
dividing
all.
it up between your
No, matter of fact,
departments?
Judy is writing, Judy's 95% finished with the population element as we speak, so we do it. Housing, I'm sorry, housing element as we speak. So it just depends. A lot, this was, obviously this is a big one that takes a lot of time.
Land use, yeah, right.
So does the land use should be speaking to hazard mitigation, the land use should be talking to flood, right?
Right.
I mean, we should know if there's an area that there's big flooding problems, you don't want to put a bunch of people over here. I mean, is what I'm trying to get is how is it integrated into this land use document?
Only in the sense of the verbiage that you put in there in a particular paragraph, like under hazard mitigation or floods, for instance. I mean, that's the only way to do it. I mean, it's integrated in the county.
Right.
But you're talking about in the document, yeah.
Just from a standpoint of, you know, we have a lot of soil information and different things, and it's like, okay, but if I don't have a map that I can look at and say, this is a bad situation for drainage or whatever it may be, you know. And honestly, just like I was asking tonight about, are there some areas that we have some stormwater issues in this county that we need to be aware of when we're planning on putting higher density somewhere, for instance? I mean,
Well, our stormwater department has a capital budget that they, like you mentioned the Hagley project earlier, I mean, they've got a list of projects. They know what they want to do next year and the year after that, because that's where your $52 a year you pay
Right.
for your stormwater fee goes into that fund. That's independent from us, but, you know, we certainly have access and talk to them all the time and that kind of thing. We review individual projects with them. I will say I've never sat down with them and, you know, looked at a whole area, you know, like you're talking about. We certainly review projects with them on a case-by-case basis, pretty much every project.
because what you worry about is putting more pressure on an area that is already having issues.
Right, sure.
And that's why, you know, just like with this one we couldn't decide on or whatever. I mean, there are plenty of people that I know that have lived here forever that are dealing with flooding issues because they got somebody building beside them and filling their land, not even cutting all the trees. And they're dealing with the water runoff, and, you know, they're stuck.
Is that something that's part of the land use plan element, though?
Well, I think it's just
what
to
we have
be
to
aware
figure
of
out-
it and to set a goal to address
Well,
it.
sustainable development or green
It doesn't
infrastructure and all
fix it.
that.
It doesn't even say how to fix it, but it sets a goal. I mean, you can think of many examples.
Right.
Here in Georgetown, where St. James and Church Street come together, that never used to flood years, but now here in Georgetown, as stuff's built up down there around where the Pizza Hut is located, that intersection floods, that big curve floods now. That curve used to not flood.
So once we get all this together in the land use, then we go to whatever towards the, you know, adjustments we need in the ordinances. Is that?
That's an extremely important part, because this is all planning and thinking, and what we really are just biting at the at the bit to do is get into this zoning ordinance and write a better, improve the tree ordinance and write a better buffer section. And the signage ordinance really needs to be written horribly. You've heard us talk, there was a Supreme Court ruling that's just ripped a lot of sign ordinances, including ours, apart. So that is going to be what's visible to the public more than anything. As you're exactly right, getting to that zoning ordinance and to the land development regulations, what you may think of as the subdivision regulations, that's where you're really going to see it. This just kind of gives you a guide to get there, but that's, I hate to say more important, but that's what's going to dictate how somebody comes in here and gets a building permit.
So for the land use plan, though, I mean, I know I've mentioned this many times, Merle's Inlet, you know, they have a watershed plan.
Right.
And the watershed plan speaks to ordinances that we should look at. But if you look at this coast, I mean, Pawleys Island has water quality issues. They're not concerned about Oysterin like we are in Merle's Inlet. But you see what I'm saying? I mean, it could go not just to Merle's Inlet, it could speak to other areas. And I think North Inlet's got some water quality problems and things like that, which, you know, it's further out there, so your pressure for development's not right on top of it. But so how does that get in there? How does that get into the land use?
You put the goals in there yourself. I mean, you'd be the planning commission. You establish those goals that that be done.
And that would be for an area plan. Well,
Now, and I think maybe what we need to do a better job, we'd be in the whole county in the future, is so often we don't get back and look at those goals. I think what should happen in the future is every time somebody brings at least a significantly sized project in, I don't think we should just make a recommendation strictly based off of, you know, the surrounding land use or whatever. I think we ought to take time to look at those goals and say, you know, this project conforms with the goals you set, or no, this thing is completely adverse to what goals we set. And that's, I think, what we need. That would be a good thing to do. Every element has its own goals, too. There's goals in housing, there's goals in population, there's goals in land use element.
And what we were talking about last time about how the height and the next door neighbors down here, and then you have a bigger place.
That would be the zoning ordinance there.
So, but that is in the goals of the land use plan now, as it's written?
I think there are goals to review the buffering and the landscaping.
I'm not aware of any specific goal regarding height, because Georgetown County's kind of had the height nailed down.
Well, we have a height limit, but whenever you're talking about, we'll use the project tonight. You know, they're 3 stories, and you're looking in somebody's yard, and they're right on top of them. So, I mean, you know, is there something that we want to have as a goal as a community, or certain communities? Maybe it's Pawleys Island, maybe it's Merle's Inlet, and maybe Georgetown, you know, doesn't care. I don't know, and I'm not trying to speak for people in Georgetown, but I think that is an issue that we need to be looking at when we're figuring out where we're going.
So I think then you would have some kind of goal in the land use element that would talk about differing land uses, look at differing land uses when they abut each other in terms of height, and then perhaps the zoning ordinance could end up with a larger setback for a 3-story building when it abuts a single-family residential. That would be a way to get there, but the goal would be broad.
Well, I just think that's where we got pushback from the last last month or whatever, you know, where you're 3 stories and then, you know, somebody's getting right there, and the buffer is one thing. A tree buffer is especially a lot better, but if you're only 30 feet, you're not going to be able to have, you know, you're going to have a pretty substantial, I would guess, distance.
Well, we talked about maybe amending our ordinance such that, you know, right now we say you've got to have a buffer But unless we say otherwise, it doesn't mean you can go in there and cut all the trees and stuff down, the bushes down, and put new stuff in. But we talked about saying, no, if you gotta have a buffer, don't touch it. You can
Right.
you can add to it, but don't go in there and rip out what's already there, 'cause
Well, I guess my earlier question about how this all talks, how the land use talks to the other stormwater hazard mitigation, I mean, because if you're dealing with water issues or stormwater issues and you're not necessarily putting anything in the land use plan to say, you know, a goal is to make sure that you have a larger buffer, protect the trees because they help the stormwater, you know. That's why I'm trying to figure out how we get it talking.
well, I think the main thing is just, like I said, when we finalize those goals in this document, just be sure we've got that kind of stuff in there. There's examples, not so much in this, but like in the zoning ordinance, we have for multifamily, you gotta leave 50% of the land pervious. I suspect that was put in the Georgetown County zoning ordinance way before there was such thing as a stormwater ordinance. I think that was the county's effort to say, we may not have a stormwater ordinance, but you can't, if you're doing multifamily, you gotta leave 50% of the land pervious. Same, I think commercials, 30%, huh? That's a good example of where the stormwater need and the zoning land use merge to address stormwater, even though there's much further and more detailed requirements in the stormwater department than that. But that's a good example where that just kind of helps.
Well, and I think as we develop more and more and more, we're going to have more stormwater issues because this is the low criteria and it doesn't drain, you know. And we also need to be protecting our natural drainage areas. So, I mean, I'm guessing that's in the stormwater ordinance. I don't know.
We can certainly have a discussion with them, and yeah, as you know, that's a very technical ordinance. So, but we can.
I've tried to read it. It's hard.
It is. We can have that discussion with them.
So Boyd, with regard to the 30-day notice, is that for
That's
all?
That's county council.
Okay, so we don't have to add anything of that nature
No,
to schedule?
everything
but-
you're doing is gravy. It's maybe a way to look at it. I mean, I think we need to advertise 15
Way in
days if
advance,
we're going to
yeah,
have a
way in
meeting and
advance.
solicit public comment. But the legally required public hearing will be a 30-day ad that county council will have to do.
Okay, I just want to make sure. So if we're going to do 3 sets of meetings, and if you feel like Merle's Inlet needs to be up there, then you're going to have to come up with a bunch of ways to limit who can come into
Again, I hope we can do it here, frankly, just so we can spread out better. I know you're right, it's a long way to go for people, but
We're also set up here if you know, we know what the distance is.
Yeah, it's not ideal, I know that. None of us like
It's not
having to
convenient.
do any of this. None of us. So, 3 distinct meetings. Am I getting the feel that that's okay with everybody? Okay.
3 different dates.
3 different dates, and probably more than a 15-day notice, I'm just going to say.
okay, I just do that. I'd set that because that's the minimum requirement for a rezoning. That's
I
what we
think
do
so.
for
That way, and
rezonings.
you guys have a Facebook page, we can put it on Facebook and use whatever media that you can get it out on. So that'd be great.
So
You'll give us some dates?
Yeah.
We're looking at September, and it's hurricane season, which is not ideal.
And I think you probably are going to have I don't know for sure, but I think you're going to have a pretty big September Planning Commission meeting. I don't think you want to do any land use at your September Planning Commission meeting.
No. But your meetings for this group, for the input.
Right, that's different. Yeah,
Okay, so
I'm
what
saying,
were you
I'm saying I wouldn't merge one of those meetings with your next regular Planning Commission meeting. I think
No.
you're going to have a big agenda from what we,
We have a big agenda in September?
Yes.
Okay, y'all heard that. You better be here.
we
So,
think.
We'll just send out dates, or you'll send out dates or something, and we'll
And
go
probably
from
what time of day is best? Do you think it would be like several hours of drop-in time?
We
for
would
people?
certainly hang around we wouldn't want to hang around several hours. Certainly no earlier. Well, I don't know.
Well, I think, do you envision this as a drop in and look at maps and leave a comment sort of situation? Or do you envision this like you sitting up there and people sign up and speak and present their comments for you and everyone to hear?
No, I think it should be very informal.
Well, in
Let
that case,
people
we could,
ask you questions and.
yeah, in that
Because they're
case,
not
we could do something and, start at 3 and go to 7 and just hang around. I mean, I'm not talking y'all would all you need to do that.
That would
but
get people coming and going to
Right.
work on the shift. or
if we
whatever.
did it in that format.
And if they wanted to come during the daylight, 3 o'clock would be good too, so,
Yeah, 'cause
yeah. Okay. 3 to 7. You'll have all Walkmore Regional to help you, I'm sure,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
since they're, kind of regarding that, just a comment on, we started out this meeting with some discussion from a citizen, Keep It Green, about some of the comments that, and paragraphs I wrote. First of all, I think it was the 3 paragraphs we talked that I was going to suggest some changes on. First of all, as you know, I didn't write any of those paragraphs.
Right.
But, and secondly, of course, I don't think that he had the most recent, what we gave y'all, because he talked about the first paragraph at length, and actually I came back and recommended to y'all to please delete that paragraph entirely. So that addresses those comments. Just do away with that 3rd paragraph. The first paragraph. The second one, I basically said, just don't change, don't make any changes, leave it like it is today. I'm not proposing any changes. The third one, I went back and tried to, I'm not sure if soften is the word, but I tried to make it clear, like with the 90-foot setback, that there was not this is not a recommendation, but it's something to think about, but there was not any contemplation that to do away with the 90-foot setback. That I added words such that if you had a unique site and you were trying to put bicycle paths around into parking behind a building, that type of thing, at least leave yourself an opportunity at a specific site. And that's the way that was written. I was also kind of surprised because one of the comments that was made is there's already a safeguard in the ordinance for those substandard properties, substandard I mean in size, so that the 90-foot setback wouldn't be a detriment to them. That's kind of good timing because at the Board of Appeals meeting 2 weeks ago, a gentleman was asking for a variance to the setback from the 90-foot setback, and actually that was deferred until the following meeting, but his request was opposed, and that particular lot is so small, he had, with the 90-foot setback, he had 14 feet of buildable area on his lot. And the very same people that are telling you tonight that there's a mechanism to make that work oppose that variance. Editorial comment. But so, yes, it is there, and relief from any setback, whatever it is in the zoning ordinance there, obviously you can go to Zoning Board of Appeals and ask for a variance, but it's not always real easy to get.
No, I'm sure it's not.
No.
That's not a good alternative. I wouldn't want to have to go there for anything.
So the 23, the density regulations, what you had sent me back about the attainable housing,
Was that page the one that I said leave as is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I frankly just said, I could tell that was going to be controversial, and I figured it'd be something we'd be getting into at length. I don't even have it in front of me. I don't think I have it in front of me says leave as written. So I can't.
But it's crossed out, so I'm just a little bit confused about it. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, at first I was recommending to take out that sentence, attainable housing needed by much of the working community can be promoted with increased density standards, and I just said just leave it alone and we can deal with that at a later date.
I just happened to attend a workshop on affordable housing, and attainable is a word that really people use in the wrong context. So I don't know, but I think as a community and as a county, we need to have some kind of goals for that. I don't know what they are.
That would be in the element you're talking about that Judy was working on, the housing
Yeah,
element.
Judy's,
But,
like I said.
anytime that's been mentioned about affordable housing, we pretty much get ripped apart. that it's, we're talking about low-income housing, that's certainly not the
Yeah.
case, but you're right, we need to address.
And then there's the term workforce
agree.
housing, which is
Right.
even different.
Right,
Right.
so maybe whenever that gets finished, we'll have new words, I don't know.
Well, yeah, we can certainly focus in on that. I don't know about new words.
I mean, I'm just,
Yeah, if y'all
I
can think of some,
I think we're leaving things out that
Yeah.
need to be, you know, we care about all our citizens and we want to have a diverse community. Most of our people that work in the service industry don't even make hardly a living wage. I mean, it's
You're
bad.
Exactly.
But, you know, they need places to live. So does the county have a plan of any
that's what
kind of?
we need to make what, the housing element, we need to make that the plan. I will tell you this, we met today with several county staff people, and there's a lot of work going on right now on that very thing about how we can come up with ways to promote that through different financial incentives. And a lot of it's over on this side of the river, too, as well. I'm not talking about just on the neck.
Right,
Well, we need it down there.
yeah,
I mean, we need it everywhere.
Right.
that's true.
I mean,
We don't really want somebody driving from Andrews to Merle's Inlet
Right,
to work. That's
right.
just clogging up the road, you know, I mean,
how do you get rid of,
Right.
congestion if you don't have housing available? And
that's right.
And it may be something else that we need to look at in land use plan as far as, what is it called, the missing middle or something like that? I mean,
You're right, 100%.
we don't allow duplexes, or we do allow duplexes, and then you got an accessory dwelling unit. And I know everybody hates density, that's,
Right.
you know,
Right.
that's why we've got to figure out how we can be
And-
inclusive and,
We made a statement today in Georgetown County as a whole, a lot of that in the past is equated to mobile homes, which, you know,
Well, there's a
I'm
lack
not-
of, I think, understanding about what are you talking about? And it's just automatically, well, we don't want those people living near us. And it's, I mean, that's what was said at one of our land use meetings when we had,
right.
when I suggested that. So it is an educational piece, that we have to be able to house our workforce, your fire, your police. And most of them are teachers. I mean, how can they afford to live? I agree with you.
water, I mean, water
We need
leaks
to have
is
a
an
definition
example.
of what affordable housing is.
Yeah, right.
Most
Right.
people think affordable housing is low income and government subsidy. It's not that.
Right.
It's different on Walkmont Act and all other areas.
That's
I
right.
think we do need to have somewhere in this thing a definition of what affordable housing is. And that same course, I took the same one I think Sandra did.
Oh,
And they
yeah.
made the statement in there, you lower the density, you raise the price of the land, and you lose affordable housing.
That's right.
So the density, higher density, you get more affordable housing.
That's why density is a much more complicated issue. You just can't look at it. If you're overly simplistic, it can cause a lot of damage.
Mhm.
All right, we had a good discussion, but we
Yeah,
got
this
to move
has been
on. We
good.
have some other topics. Do you have enough from us for?
I think so. I'm sure we'll be
More
calling
than
and
enough.
polling.
More than enough, yeah. No, it was good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open up the street names. Miss Tiffany, you have one street name?
Yes, ma'am. We have one street name tonight. This is for the Waterleaf Development in Merle's Inlet, and the street name is Cord Grass Loop. We have contacted the appropriate fire departments and 911 communications, and we are recommending approval of this street name.
Okay. And you have the attendance report? Also,
Yes, it is, should be on the first couple of pages of your addendum.
Yeah, good. The minutes from July are in the packet. I hope you all had a chance to really peruse them, make any criticisms. Any comments? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the July minutes.
I need a motion for my street name.
Oh, right, thank you. All right, excuse me.
The screen changed, it wasn't.
Street names. Motion for the street names.
Mr. Weaver, thank you.
We're getting slap happy.
Second.
Second. Ms. Bundy. Any more discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Street names are approved. Nobody's opposed. All right. Now, the minutes from July of 2020. Okay, we have a motion and a second from Mr. Reddy. Any more discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes, raise your right hand. Any opposed? Motion carried. Anything else for the good
I
of
need
the-
a separate motion for the workshop minutes.
Oh, the workshop minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
The land use element
Oh, I
workshop,
see them.
right? I'm sorry. We need a separate motion for the land use element workshop minutes. So moved, Mr. Weaver. Second, Mr. Freddy. Any more discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. All right. Any other announcements for the, except that September's going to be a biggie?
Yes.
Okay. Oh,
It could be.
please.
I
No-
wasn't
no
opposed
rezonings,
to
right?
that last thing, I was just late.
Yeah.
I was not opposing the last motion, I was just late,
Late.
just to be clear.
Oh, no. Next month, oh, boy. I just want you to know, I'm constantly surrounded by healthcare issues, so, you know, I might have to be at it. Just kidding. All right, motion to adjourn, someone. Thank you, Mr. Graham. Mr. Great, thank you. All in favor, raise your right hand. Al, thank you. Good night, everybody. My